Hello and welcome to Gabbit Media with grant.abbitt, that's me, and we're on number 7, which was speed, and you can see my work just here. I'm quite pleased with this one. I actually took a different direction for a change, took a few risks, and I'm pleased with the outcome. I thought it went well. Before I start, there's links in the description for the Discord server, my website, and lots of links to base mesh starting up, sculpting tips, all those sort of things. So for example, I'm using the skin modifier here. So there's tips for that on the links in the description. So yes, I'm using the skin modifier and setting up the shape of my cheetah. Here's cheetahs, the fastest land mammal. Bet you didn't know that. Everybody seems to know that. It's one of those things you learn at primary school, isn't it? I seem to remember something like 60 miles per hour was their top speed. Anyway, cheetahs. So I set up the skin modifier and made sure it was all correct before applying it. You do get lots of glitches with the skin modifier, but I am starting to find it the better way of creating meshes, generally speaking. Metable's very good as well, but the skin modifier just seems to work the nicest. Maybe it's just that I'm using it the most at the moment. But yeah, enjoying the skin modifier, that's definitely the case. You do certainly have to tidy up your mesh quite a lot, and you need to sort of get a rough shape before you start. So you can see I've done that here. Now the interesting thing at this point is that there was no mirror, so trying to sculpt without mirror is actually excessively hard. We're so used to using it, I think, that you sort of forget it's there, and then suddenly you realise that it looks dreadful without it. So I did the face, the whole sort of head of the cheetah, with us in a sort of separate a mesh, that's the word I'm looking for, and then brought it in and booleaned it in the end. Someone gave me some advice the other day of using the inflate brush when doing anatomy, and I thought, well, I'll give that a go. I was a bit skeptical at first. I thought it would be very similar to the draw brush, but for some reason it did seem nicer. I still can't put my finger on it, why it was so much better, but it really seemed to work. So thank you for that. I can't remember who it was. It was just on the YouTube comments. But thank you, whoever said that, because I think it's something I will use more often. The inflate brush. They said something about it goes with how muscles are formed. Something like that. I can't quite remember, but it did seem to work. It seemed to flow more. So you can see me trying to struggle with the head here. I tried to set it up so it was symmetrical and set my pivot point in the middle and things, but it wasn't quite right, and I gave up on this eventually. It's taken me a long time to give up on it. I'm really going for it. But I do get there eventually. I look like I'm doing a bit of a pause. Yes, you can tell that I'm looking at reference images at this point. So whenever there's a pause, I'm thinking I need another reference. I need some more guidance. I did have a fair few reference images. Might put those on the screen, but I think you can imagine what they are. Just lots of cheetahs running, and the pose I certainly got from a reference image. It's quite tricky to just imagine a cheetah running in your head. You have to, well, I certainly do. I need some reference images. So this is where I brought in my blob and started blobbing it around and pushing it into position. It's sort of becoming an in-joke, me saying something silly in these live, they're sort of live because I'm not doing any jump cutting. These, what are they called? Commentaries, that's the word. I make these mistakes all the time. I'm glad people are putting up with it actually, so it makes it a lot quicker for me to put these together. But you are obviously going to notice all these mistakes that I make. You can imagine how long it takes me to do any of my sort of vlogs and stuff. It takes me a long time and lots of takes and lots of jump cuts. Anyway, so here we are with the face, and I think I've booleaned it in now, if that makes sense. Yes, I have, and it's in the right place, so it's still mirrored. So that's the only piece of the geometry that is mirrored, or the mesh geometry. Yeah, same thing. so I can work on the head with the X mirror on, but I keep forgetting every now and again that I've got it on, and then I forget to put it back on when I've turned it off and things. That's one thing. I do tend to move around my models a lot and then go back to a specific point. I think it's really important to move around your models a lot, zoom in and out. So when you're doing those detail bits, zoom back out, because you'll suddenly realise that it's not the right size for the rest of the shape. One thing I did see other people doing, Huion Sculpts in particular, was setting up his screens so that he had one screen for his sculpt and then other screens so he could see his model sort of bigger on, and that's a great idea. I'm working on a fairly small screen because I'm working on my Wacom Mobile Studio Pro, which I think is 15-inch, so it's a teeny bit awkward to set that up, and I'm also screen recording. I could obviously set those screens up on other screens, but then other monitors I should say, but then people such as yourselves, the audience, wouldn't be able to see that, so it's a bit tricky. But that's something worth doing, is setting up windows so you can see the bigger shapes of your model whilst you're doing the details. It took me a while to get the face right. I wanted to get the face right though, because that's the bit you look at first, especially around the eyes. Really important to get good detail on the eyes. With people, weirdly, it's the nose that we look at a lot. They say when you're doing caricatures, if you get the nose right, the rest of the caricature will look right, apparently. So that's the most important thing, apparently. I suppose when we talk to people, we look down at their sort of nose, not straight into their eyes. It's a bit disconcerting when you look straight into someone's eyes. Anyway, I'm babbling a bit. Getting the head right. I wanted the sort of ears pinned back with this sort of speed, so I did a bit of adaptation on all my reference images and things. The head did take me a while, and I wasn't sure whether I had the right size, so I was, on my references, I was sort of counting heads into the body. Sort of like when you learn to draw a human, you've got sort of 8 heads to the body, 7.5 they say, something on average, and it looks like there's about 6 heads to the cheetah. So I sort of counted that up, went on my reference models and made sure mine was the right size. So here I am testing this idea of these speed strokes. I'd seen this in some sculptures online when I was sort of researching the idea of speed. I'd seen them before somewhere, and I wanted to sort of find them and see if I could mimic something like that in Blender. It wasn't easy, to be fair. It's not really the right tool. What is that? They're not the grab brush, the snake hook tool, that's the one. Pulling that across. Whenever you go over the top, or you've got a bit of geometry behind it and you swish past it with your swishes, it picks that up as well. So it was quite a pain, but I did a few tests. So I just copied my original Cheetah and did some tests on it to see whether it would work. And it sort of seemed to be working, so I thought I'd just go with it and not worry too much. I do feel a bit under pressure because my work is being shown on my channel, and I feel like I'm supposed to be okay at this stuff because I teach it. There's a bit of pressure there, and it can stop you in a sense experimenting always. I'd say that in my blog a couple of times, always looking for your portfolio piece when actually you should spend time practicing and experimenting rather than always trying to make the best possible whatever it is that you're trying to do. I think it is important for me to fail and make mistakes, so I thought I'm just going to try it out. And I think it was a happy mistake as well, but well, not a mistake as such, but a happy test, as it worked out, and it all, in my opinion anyway, it all went well with the final piece. So I actually stretched the model as well. I thought that'd be a good idea to give it a more exaggerated style, a sort of really stretched into the speed, like it was being shot at speed with a camera or something like that. I think I'm making sense anyway. So it's stretched slightly, but that I felt like it worked anyway. But you can see me struggling away with these sort of blobby bits. I'm not sure whether I'm going to put this on Sketchfab actually, because it was a bit of a pain and decimating it. I knew that if I decimated too much, I'd lose the detail in those strokes. So it's still a fairly high resolution model. Although I was able to decimate it a fair bit because I didn't lose any detail in things like the face. It was nice not to have to do all the normal maps and things like that. I didn't do any cavity normal maps or anything. I just did a sort of metallic body, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out. So it's nice not to have to do that for a change. It can get quite tedious. I'm sure that's something that's going to get automated in the near future. Sort of painting normal maps, texturing with normal maps and cavity maps and all those sort of things. Substance Painter kind of does it automatically. You take your high poly mesh and low poly mesh and say, there they are, sort it out for me, and it does it pretty well. Blender seems a bit glitchy, if I'm honest. So you can see I'm just, it was a bit of a happy accident, again, happy accident Bob Ross style. I brought all the original cheetahs that I've been practicing with together, and I thought actually that looks kind of interesting, so I'm going to go with that and sort of blend them together. And then I had this idea that I'd slowly put the transparency on, and it would sort of fade out as it was going down. So it's like a what do you call that? Motion blur. That's the word I'm looking for. And see, I struggle to find my words when I'm doing this sort of live thing. What do you call this? Commentary. That's see, mistakes. Anyway, so back to this. There's the structure, and I thought, yep, I'm liking this. I think it's looking great. So I thought I'd do some messing around in Eevee. Still practicing with Eevee, getting better. I keep just trying to look up a few tutorials, see what other people have done, and try and figure out what's going on and how it works. It took me a while to get used to the transparency, the mix shader, and it crashed there with me trying to set up a mix shader. So it took a while. Actually, it wasn't the mix shader, it was the glass. I was thinking it was going to work with glass, but then I just thought, no, a principled shader mixed with transparency, that'll be fine. And it worked okay in the end. I had problems setting up smooth shading for some reason on one of the cheetahs, but it worked in the end, luckily. There are just a few glitches like that, and I have noticed in the comments lots of people saying about 2.8 how they're not ready to go across to it yet, and I can quite understand. There's so many things that I like about it, and for this, rendering in Eevee, so if I'm trying to get a render done, it renders in 5 minutes instead of 5 hours. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. For doing something like this, where I'm working on something each day and trying to produce something in each day, Eevee's essential almost. I suppose I could make the models in 2.79, but I quite like the fact that people can see the brushes down the side of the screen, if I remember to bring the tab out. And you can't do that in 2.79 so easily. Anyway, there's the finished result. Like I say, I'm pretty happy with that. I like how it turned out. Put a bit of bloom on this time for a bit of fun. I'm not sure, I don't know whether I like bloom sometimes, but it seems to sort of mask inaccuracies, so quite good for that. One I thought was really brilliant was from Chase A Poly. I thought his work on Rotten, I think it was, this one, was brilliant, so I thought I'd show that. So get along to Sculpt January. And here I am looking through the Discord server. So there's Hunt Apple Pie, Liram's work on Rotten. I'm going pretty fast through these, but there's quite a few. Tuttak's 15 or whatever it is, can't remember. But yeah, his obsession with legs is quite funny. There's some great anatomy work with the chest. And this one's pretty cool. Here's that, double tap. Well done there, lots of work gone into that, nice to see. A Rotten one there. This, I quite like this. The materials just look great on this. Lovely stuff. Sorry, I'm missing names out, but some nice work on here. Love the hedgehog. Love that one. And yeah, there's always a play on the chest, a chest. And Manuhu's my favourite. Manuhu's really nice work. Well done for your piece there. Okay, so do get across to the Discord server, and thank you for watching. Thanks for all the support as well, and I will see you next time.